Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob. Here we are approaching, let's see, May 29th is my anniversary on this show. Wow. Well, Bob's Big Adventure anniversary, and then An Hour with Bob came soon after, and then we're doing both shows. And a lot of people used to think it was the same show, but one is in the studio, An Hour with Bob, and Bob's Big Adventure is on location. May 29th, 1992. Is when I started the show. 1992, that's a long time. That's not quite as long as I've known my guest here tonight. In fact, before I introduce my guest, I gotta say something about one of the men that had a show here for, oh God, it had to be 20 years, right, John? Right? Anthony Walsh passed on a week or so ago. Anthony Walsh was a fixture in Rhode Island on public access TV. He had a talk show, a politically charged talk show, and he used to have some great guests over the years. And he was definitely a dedicated public servant and dedicated to doing the show and doing what's right for his cause and his, what he thought of, what he was passionate about. And unfortunately, Anthony Walsh has passed, and he's up there with the big guy, I guess. So let me get back to my show here. And on a high note, a good note, another one of my friends is here. I hadn't seen him in a while, and then all of a sudden he come back on the scene. He was gone, big shot in Washington, D.C. for 3+ years. Now he come back with us little guys here in Rhode Island. I see him in the State House almost daily. Tom Corderre, how you doing?
Good, Bob. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having me on your show.
Now, what did you do in Washington, D.C.?
So I was back in 2014. I got a call from the White House, actually, asking me if I would come to Washington to serve as a senior advisor and then as chief of staff to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. That's the agency.
Now, wait a minute. I got to stop you there.
Yeah, sure.
Now, how did you really think that it was a real call? That somebody, the White House called me, okay.
Well, it's funny because it was kind of strange how it happened. A friend of mine who had worked in the previous administration for President Obama and worked in presidential personnel had somebody reach out to me to find names. They were going to be hiring a policy person to work on addiction recovery activities and policies in the previous administration, and they reached out and asked me if I knew anybody who might be interested. So I passed on a couple names to them, and then they called back and they said, "Hey, we got your names, but how come you didn't put your name in there?"
Right.
I was like, well,
and the answer is?
I said I had a job. I was Teresa Paiva-Weed's chief of staff, and I was busy here working really hard for her and for the local addiction recovery community, because that's a passion of mine. It has been forever. And he said, well, just put your name in. He said, send it in. You never know what will happen. And then so when I got the call, I was kind of prepped that I might get it. So it wasn't as big of a surprise. But it was still a big surprise and a huge honor. In fact, the honor of my life to go to Washington and work in the previous administration. The Department of Health and Human Services is a great big department, and the agency that deals with mental health and substance use disorders is a big part of that department now, especially in the middle of a mental health crisis in this country, and we have an opioid crisis and an overdose epidemic. So those issues got a lot of attention over the last couple of years.
They sure did.
Yeah, they did, and rightfully so.
Yes.
And it's been a long time, and they should have gotten them probably a lot sooner.
Now, what do you attribute this whole overdose thing and this whole? Why do people know? Don't they understand that fentanyl kills people?
Yeah. So you're dealing with a couple of different things that happened. There was kind of a perfect storm that was created, so to speak. You had pharmaceutical companies producing these opioids. I don't know if you remember when OxyContin first came on the market. Do you remember what it was given to people for? It was used in end-of-life circumstances.
Oh,
it was
really?
almost like a replacement for morphine. And so it was for just the sickest of the sick individuals. And then little by little, that opioid became an opioid of choice to deal with pain.
Right.
And so people had various pains, whether it was physical pain, dental pain.
Right.
They broke a leg or had a sports injury.
Yep.
They were getting prescribed Vicodin or OxyContin. And the companies were telling doctors that it wasn't addictive.
Right.
Patients were getting it from a doctor, so they had a prescription bottle, and so they didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And they started, they didn't realize that the more they took, the more if they had a predisposition for addiction especially,
Sure.
that they were going to get addicted to these painkillers. And that's what happened. So you saw prescribing go up like this,
Yep.
and at the same time, people started getting addicted. The addiction line went up, the substance use disorder line. And then you started seeing a clamp down on those prescriptions. People ended up going to the street. They were getting hooked on heroin, which was laced at some point with fentanyl. And so then you started seeing overdose deaths really go skyrocket.
My question, why would a drug dealer lace something with something that would kill people? I don't understand that.
I know, it's a really good question, and I have a tough time understanding it too.
I mean, if their market is to sell drugs,
right?
Why would they want to kill the
customers?
consumer?
Right.
I mean, that doesn't make sense.
So apparently, from my conversations with folks that are on the street doing this every
Sure.
day, and also with law enforcement, what they found is that there's really a market now for fentanyl. That as people take these opioids, they become tolerant to them.
Right.
And once you become tolerant to them, it takes more and more of them to get the same effect. And so fentanyl started becoming the drug of choice for people because they were developing these high tolerances to opioids. So they were seeking out fentanyl.
Sure.
And nobody thinks it's going to happen to them. No, number one, no one thinks they're going to get addicted. I know I never did.
Right.
And number two, you don't believe that you're going to die, you're going to overdose and die.
Sure.
So I think that's what's happening in our country, and I think that's why we really need to sound the alarm. And that's why I'm really appreciative for you having me on the show here too, to get the message out to the public, how dangerous this crisis is, and how easy it is to unsuspectingly get addicted and to go down that path.
Now, I've had several back operations.
Yep.
I've had 5 back operations.
Wow.
And I've had 3 knee replacements.
Jesus.
And I had my rotator cuff ruptured. So, and I've had
so you know
OxyContin.
Yes, you know the experience.
I've had, even from the beginning, I had to take, no matter what medication I've ever had to take, it's always been high dosage because from when I was a kid, I got burnt in a fire when I was a kid at 6 years old, and they had me on everything under the sun. And I attribute that to my high tolerance to medication. I mean, it just doesn't, none of it works for me.
Right.
None of it works for me.
Exactly.
And I had a doctor giving me OxyContin 30, I guess 30 milligram OxyContin, and the long-acting one, or the, what's the other?
They have an extended release
They had
version.
one that's 80 milligram, and the 80s.
Yep.
And I was taking in the hospital, I was taking, no baloney, I was taking 2 30s and 2 80s. Or the 80s I was taking every 8 hours, 2, and the 30s I was taking every 3 to 4 hours.
Wow.
And it didn't even do anything.
And you weren't feeling it. Yeah, everyone's chemistry is different.
Yeah. And I've had them give me the IV. In fact, just with the knee surgery, last year knee surgery, before I knew it, they had put in the IV, they put morphine in it for the pain. And I said, what'd you just give me? They said, morphine. I said, well, first of all, you should have told me.
Of course.
Number one. And number two, it ain't going to do anything. Oh, you'll feel better, much better. I said, it's not going to do anything. And it doesn't. For some reason, morphine has no effect whatsoever on me. None.
It's interesting.
Never did, not from day one, not from any surgery, because one of the drugs of choices after surgery is morphine. And they've tried Dilaudid, and they've tried...
Yeah, those are very common that they give to people in the hospital through intravenous, typically.
Right.
And I think one of the problems is that doctors, other healthcare professionals, nurses, they don't get a lot of education about these drugs before they give them.
Right. They get it from, in the education they get is from the drug companies.
Sometimes it's from the drug companies, exactly, and the rest it's on the job training. They learn from their patients.
Right.
But because every patient's different, you're not getting really solid information about what it can do, right? So we need to spend a lot more time educating doctors, and that's one of the things I'm hoping to work on while I'm here. Governor Baker in Massachusetts his father was a doctor, and he ran a big healthcare system there before he became governor, and he has a project that he's working with medical schools to get more training for addiction in medical school curriculum. Right now,
that'd be good.
It would be great. Right now, you know how much training doctors get in addiction?
A week.
No, we're lucky if it's a day, and sometimes it's a fraction of a day.
Wow, that's
hours in a
unbelievable.
day, and that's one of the
That's
reasons.
sad.
Well, and it's one of the reasons why we're in this mess. you
Right,
know?
right. Now, your own personal, we
Sure.
haven't established that, but
Yeah.
you had a little problem way back in the day. You were a state senator
Yeah,
for a while,
I
and
was.
up and coming state senator.
Well, I don't know about that, but
You were. Weren't you the
I was the
whip?
majority whip. Yeah.
You were the whip.
Yeah.
And
I
how
was-
old were you when you were the whip? Middle
So-
20s?
Yeah, well, late 20s. I got elected at 25.
Oh, it was 20.
As
I thought it was
as a
younger
state
than
senator from Pawtucket. Yeah, I was 24 when I was running, but 25 when I got
Okay.
elected and started serving. And
By
just 4 or 5
29
years into that, I became
Kelly's.
I was the deputy whip for Senator Kelly when he was
Senator
the
Kelly,
majority leader,
right.
and then when Senator Irons became the majority leader, I became the whip.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
under him. So I served under both of those guys, and I had an amazing time in representing the city of Pawtucket in the Senate. But
And at such a young age, I mean,
Yeah, it was
you
a-
had more power than most people that have been up there
you
30
know,
years.
and therein lies the problem.
Why?
I think you've
Why?
identified something.
I got it there?
Yeah, because
Because you could do anything you wanted,
yeah,
get
you're a
anything you
young
wanted.
guy, you're at a young age, and you think you're invincible. And so I had been introduced to alcohol, was the very first drug I ever
Gee,
used,
of
just
course.
like most people, right? And there's a lot of drinking.
It's another
that
thing I
happens.
don't do, by the way.
I know you don't. Congratulations. You and I can go out for a coffee sometime.
That's right.
But-
Anytime you want.
But the thing with being a young guy, you think you're invincible. And
Right.
you start drinking, and then you get introduced to other things, other drugs, and you think that they're not going to have that impact on you. You
Right.
think that you're going to be able to overcome them, like because you can overcome other things in your life. You think you're going to be able to overcome them, and you don't realize how strong and how powerful those substances
Right.
are. You underestimate them. You underestimate the neurological consequences of them.
Right.
Right. You underestimate what they can do to your life.
And the psychological comp.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, and you can very quickly become addicted, and your life can start a downward spiral. And that's what happened to me. I ended up losing everything. I lost that seat in the Senate that I was super proud of. Lost my job as an executive director of a nonprofit agency in Providence. I lost when my family and friends tried to help me. I resisted their help. I pushed them away.
Right.
That caused me to lose them. I lost my friends. I lost interest in politics.
You didn't lose all your friends.
No, well, I lost them temporarily, I
Right.
should say. Even my family, I only lost temporarily. I
Sure.
mean, they're back in my life, and thank God they are. If I didn't have the support network I have from my friends and from my family, I never would have made it on this journey. So I'm super lucky and blessed.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And you made the best of it.
Well, I felt like I had a lot of rebuilding to do. Once you lose everything and you get into recovery, you do a lot of thinking, and you do a lot of therapy. You do a lot of work on yourself, and you really are able to take a look at your life and ask yourself what you want to do about that. And I think that's a really common phrase in recovery. We ask people, what do you want to do about your problem, and how can I help? Well, that's what a lot of people asked me, and that kind of puts it back in your lap.
Right.
And you have to take a look at your life, a real serious look. And I did that, and I said, I want to help other people because I was grateful that I was able to get into recovery. I want to help other people find what I found. And so that's what I dedicated the first few years of my recovery to, because I didn't have a job. I really, when I got arrested here in my home city for possession of a controlled substance, I did a couple days at the ACI,
That'll wake somebody up real
Exactly.
quick.
Judge Gerobio knew exactly how to get my attention, but because of that, I had opportunity to go to treatment. I
Right.
was in treatment for 6 months. And
Where'd
then
you go?
lived in-
Where'd you go for
I
treatment?
was in a place called the Wilson House here in Pawtucket, on Summit Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great place. And,
Yeah. With the big porch.
With the big porch, the wraparound porch.
the white-
the big Victorian, old
Yeah,
Victorian,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right off the highway there.
Yep.
And it was a great place for me to go and to
So
start
you were
to
close to
rebuild my
home.
life.
You're right down the street.
That's the thing. A lot of people say, oh, I have to, go away to rehab or I have to go away to treatment. I did. I had other opportunities where I went away.
Right.
Those didn't work. Where I ended up recovering was 5 blocks from where I grew up and
Wow.
lived my whole life.
Wow.
So, and I grew up in the community where I live and that I loved. And I rode my bike around, around Quality Hill or around
Yep.
downtown. I got on buses. did everything I needed to do to kind of build my life back up.
And how long did that take you? You said 6 months.
Yeah, I was 6 months in that treatment center. Then I was another 6 months in a recovery house. I ended up going back to school. I had 9 credits. I was 9 credits short of a bachelor's degree at Rhode Island College. So President Nazarian invited me back one day and pulled out of his pocket. He had my transcript in his pocket. He pulled it out. He said, "You're 9 credits short." He said, "We're going to finish your degree. I'm going to help you." I said, "I don't know if I can do it." He said, "You can do it. I'm going to help you finish."
Wow.
Finish my bachelor's degree. I got involved in this organization called RICARES, Rhode Island Communities for Addiction Recovery Efforts. They were going down to the State House advocating for legislation to get more resources for detoxification beds, like withdrawal management beds and treatment beds. I said, "How can I help? I used to be a state senator. Maybe I can come with you." And
Well, they got the right guy. They were smart. They were smart enough.
But it was also good for me because I needed to get out again. I needed to reintroduce myself. I needed to see how the community was going to react
and
to
see
me.
that you were needed. That's true, I think. Not that you needed, but that you were needed.
Well, there was that. I was needed, and that made me feel needed.
Exactly.
But it also, that being able to do those things kind of restored my confidence. I didn't have a lot of confidence at that point after going through that traumatic, circumstance. So I needed confidence. I needed hope, right? I needed to build faith and trust in other people. And all that stuff was a real big part of doing that. Well, amazing, right?
It is amazing. Yeah. It's amazing that you see so many people. Not the percentages aren't very good that people come back from addiction.
Well, this is a chronic. It's a chronic illness, just like a lot of other chronic illnesses, and a lot of times people don't get the kinds of help that they need to recover. So yeah, you're right. Sometimes we have low success rates, and the outcomes aren't as good as we want them. So that's one of the things that Governor Raimondo has asked me to do. She's asked me to come back to Rhode Island.
Right.
Yeah. Now.
So they got you to come back here.
Yeah.
And you run the substance abuse.
Well, not exactly. So I'm a senior advisor in the governor's office. She wanted somebody right in her office. In fact, I'm right next door to her, so she can open the door and yell at me anytime she wants.
Does she?
She does, of course. Tom, how are we making out? Yeah. But you have a boss that's similar, so I know that the lieutenant governor is not much different. They keep tabs on us, and that's good because they want to push an agenda forward. They want Rhode Islanders to get the help that they need, and I know your boss cares about this just as much as mine.
Yes.
And he's doing a lot of work with mayors and local city and town governments. But the governor said to me, "I want you to come back. I want somebody sitting right in my office. I know we have a Department of Behavioral Health, a Department of Health that are working hard on the overdose crisis." The epidemic that we have in our state. I want you to serve on the task force. I want you to get more state agencies involved. I want you to help really coordinate this out of the governor's office because I know that we had 323 people die last year of a drug overdose.
That is scary. Wow.
Yeah. So good news is for the first time we started to see it come down. 4% decrease last year over 2016. That's good news, but that's very modest. We need to do better. And I think that's what the governor said. We need to keep going on this, and we need to find other strategies and bring people that aren't at the table. We need to bring them to the table.
Right.
We need people that are around the table that may be able to do more. We need to ask them to do more. And so that's what she's got me doing every single day, making sure that we have strategies and metrics to measure what we're doing, because that's really important. We can go out and have all the best programs we want, but if we're not reaching the right people, right? If we're not keeping track of that, we're not going to have the success we need.
Being successful, like you said, reducing the amount of
number of overdoses. That has to be our single cause, right? We've got to reduce that first.
Right.
Another cause that we have to have, though, is we need to prevent these things from happening in the first place.
In the first place.
So we got to go upstream a little bit, and that means educating doctors and prescribers to reduce the number of prescriptions that are being written. It also means going to schools and places in the community to do primary prevention with kids to help them understand the risks of using and how they can get addicted and what would happen if they did. We need to rescue as many people as we can. There's a life-saving antidote called naloxone.
Yep.
I have some in my jacket right
Really?
over here. Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone should carry it because just like there's defibrillators in all public buildings, we need to make sure there's naloxone available too. Somebody could have an overdose here tonight, and we're going to want to be able to save that person's life.
I hope not.
Well, you never
Well,
know.
we got a Tony DeJesus from the Big Blue Bug over here. I don't think he's ready. No, you're all set, right? John over there is okay. You're okay, and I'm all right.
But the point is that it needs to be
better to-
available,
right,
in case
Right.
an emergency happens.
It's like having a fire extinguisher available in the house.
Precisely, right? It's a simple preventative measure that we can take and we can have success with. We also need to make sure more people can get into treatment. So we've established something called Centers of Excellence and levels of care at hospital and emergency rooms.
Now, what is that Centers of Excellence? What
So
is
Centers
that
of
in the-
Excellence-
are they all in the hospital, or
No,
they're other places?
No, they're
right?
all over.
They're all over the
They're
place,
all
right?
over, but these centers of excellence are places that people can go and get access to treatment.
Yep.
Medication-assisted treatment is a very effective treatment for people who have opioid use disorder. So they get on a medication-assisted treatment. They get psychosocial and recovery supports that wrap around them to help them, because it's not just necessarily getting off the substances that you need to do, but you also need to start to rebuild your life. All the stuff I talked about that I had to do, other people have to do that.
Right.
So recovery support is critical. And we've got a great organization here right in Pawtucket called the Anchor Recovery Community Center. They work with other recovery organizations like Ride Cares and Parent Support Network to do amazing work. They train recovery coaches, people just like me with lived experience like if you're talking to somebody else who's been through it,
Right.
you can get through to them.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's a lot easier.
You've
to get
been
through
there,
to them.
done that.
Exactly, and then they have a level of trust with you, and you can help them navigate sometimes a very, very difficult system.
Well, it's tough to take advice from someone that doesn't know what you're going through. It's tough.
It is, yeah. You need somebody who really can be empathetic and who can not only be empathetic but say, you know what? There's an old story, you probably know it, about the guy that was stuck down in the hole, and there was, a priest came by and he prayed over him. A millionaire came by and threw $100 bills down.
Right.
All these people came by and tried to do stuff for him, but no one could help him out of the hole. Another recovering person in recovery walked by. They jumped in the hole. And the guy said, "What did you do that for? Why did you jump in the hole? Now there's two of us stuck in the hole."
Right.
He said, "I've been in this hole before. I know how to get out. Follow me." So
Cool.
that's what recovery coaches
Right.
do. They help somebody navigate, that system and how to get out. And I think, we need to really have the expectation that recovery is possible for everyone. That needs to be our expectation and our hope for everybody. That's how we should start off, right? And then make sure that we fill in the blanks going backwards, right? Do you need withdrawal management? Do you need medication-assisted treatment? Do you need long-term residential, partial hospitalization, outpatient programs? We have all those services available for people, but we don't always do a great job of diagnosing somebody for what they need, assessing them for what they need, and then making sure they get the right level
And
of care.
explaining to them what they have available, right?
Well, yeah, they need to know the full menu of options. If you had cancer and you went to the doctor, right, the doctor would, or diabetes or heart disease,
Sure.
any disease, the doctor would say, "Here's what you have, here's your diagnosis, and here's the breadth and depth of treatments that we have available to treat that illness."
Right.
And so which one do you think would work well for you? And let's talk about it. We need to have those conversations with people. Make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and they certainly got the right guy to handle this. I'll tell you that. My God.
Thank you. Well, I've had a little bit of personal experience, and then being able to go to Washington and see how the federal government operates, and to really be able to interact with some of the best and brightest minds around the country on these issues has really educated me. I'm very fortunate.
Well, you're educated from both ends of the scale, are you not?
I'm getting there. I got a lot more to learn, but I'm getting there. Absolutely.
But when you see people that go through a program, even a 6-month program,
right,
and they come out and you see them a month later, a week later, and they're back in the same way.
Well,
that's got to be disheartening.
It can be, but again, it's a chronic condition that has the potential for reoccurrence.
Right.
It can reoccur or recovery. So either one can happen. What I find oftentimes is that people don't get the recovery supports that they need, because once somebody gets out of treatment, they're not done. We hold graduation ceremonies in treatment centers, and
really?
Yeah, and there's a guy, a recovery advocate. His name is Bill White. He says we need to stop doing that because we're sending a message that you're done.
You're done, right?
And you're not. Your journey's just beginning.
Right.
That's just the start. I remember when I went through my battle, I felt like my life was over. I really did. You know, being arrested, right, ending up on the front page of the paper on all
Yes.
3 news stations. You know, you don't think you're ever going to go back into politics again. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Never mind
That's
have
amazing.
any semblance of a career.
Right.
And what I found out is that my life was really just beginning at
Yep.
that moment. And because I had access to long-term intensive treatment, because I went to a recovery house after, because I surrounded myself with, my, network of people in recovery
Positive
who could help
people.
me.
Positive people.
Some were positive, some were negative. They're just like everybody else. But
Yeah.
but the fact is that they had been down this road. They knew how to get out of the hole. And I surrounded myself with those people, right?
Sure.
That's what we have to emphasize for people who are getting out of treatment, so that they don't go back into the hole again.
Right.
We need to say, let's wrap people around them. Let's make sure they get over to Anchor Recovery Community Center. Let's make sure they get assigned a recovery coach. Let's make sure that they, you know what the 3 predictors of somebody's success in recovery are? The 3
No.
biggest predictors? It's housing, education, and a job.
I knew the job had to
Right?
be in there. A job or money, somehow.
Well,
they
yeah,
had to get
exactly.
money.
Just like for every other social ill, right?
Yep, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so if we can help people with those 3 things, making sure that, just like John Nazarian helped me with my education.
Sure.
I went to that recovery house. I had a roof over my head, right? And then I got a job.
Right.
That really is what helped me.
That put you back on the right road.
That's what restored my confidence and gave me hope. And that's what we need to do for everybody who has this illness.
And it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world, because
Right.
if they don't have, for some, it's low self-esteem, right?
It can be. I mean, it could be any number of things, right? It could be trauma that they experienced,
Right.
as
Something,
either as
somebody died in their family, or something happened.
or maybe they got abused. They were a victim of abuse in
Right,
some way.
right, yep.
They could have some type of depression, anxiety, some type of a co-occurring mental health condition that they're dealing with that has never been diagnosed. So we
Right.
really need to look at the full person and say, alcohol, other drugs, maybe those were symptoms. Maybe you were self-medicating. Maybe they were symptoms of a larger problem
Right.
that went untreated.
So you
or
got to get
undealt
to
with.
that. You got to get to the problem
the core,
first, right?
to the
You got to
core.
get to the core first.
Yeah.
Before you can say that it's the drug that's doing it to them, or the alcohol that's doing it to them. You got to
Exactly.
see why they're doing it in the
Exactly.
first place.
I mean,
right?
there are some people who just get addicted and they had no trauma, nothing else, no adverse childhood experience, nothing.
Just party
Maybe- yeah,
animals.
maybe they crossed the line, right?
Right, right.
But for a large percentage of people, they do have other things. And if we don't, if we just say, hey, you need to stop drinking or stop using opioids, that's not good enough for them.
Right.
We need to get to the core reason of why they were using in the first place and help them deal with that so they don't return.
So one of the easiest accesses is because somebody had an injury, or you think,
Yeah.
and or
We're hearing that a lot.
Yes.
Especially in the opioid crisis.
Right, right.
Especially like, how about kids who play youth sports?
Yes.
That's happening to them a lot, right? They
even to go to see a doctor, a dentist.
dentists are common too. We hear that a lot. Dentists are prescribing people, Percocet or something.
Not all
like
of them.
that.
I know a dentist that wouldn't,
Good.
he'd shut you. First of all, he wouldn't prescribe it for you.
Yeah. We need more of those kinds of dentists.
Right.
And we're trying to educate dentists, and the Rhode Island Dental Association has been amazing in that process. The Rhode Island Medical Society, too, has been amazing in helping us work through this crisis. They've been our partners here in Rhode Island. So we're really fortunate. The task force, we have a overdose prevention and intervention task force. There's over 50 people from all parts of the community. How about our friends in law enforcement? They're a big part of it.
Right, exactly.
Local police, state police. We have the HIDA task force, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Task Force. We have all sorts of folks who have come together to help solve this problem, and we need to take advantage of all of their expertise because this is multifaceted, it's multidimensional, the problem is.
Right.
So the solutions need to be. And we need to work really hard to try to involve everybody in the community. Our task force theme for 2018 is communities coming together. We want to take this to the next level. The task force has been really working hard on those 4 strategies I mentioned.
Sure.
Prevention, rescue, treatment, and recovery. Now it's time to take those 4 strategies out into local communities.
Well, that's what my boss has been doing.
He's been super
Going
helpful.
Going
Yeah.
from cities and towns, he's very friendly with a lot of the mayors. Being a former mayor of Cumberland himself, he's connected with all these mayors.
Exactly.
And he put together that
Yeah, we had a summit a couple of weeks ago of local municipal leaders. There was a summit last July. I think he spoke at it.
Yes.
There's one coming up this June. He's speaking at that one as
He
well.
is, yes.
But he's really helping us get the message out to local cities and towns, because if we're going to have an impact on this crisis, we're going to need to make sure that we involve everybody. Take the strategies that we've developed and that have been working at a state level down to the local municipal level now.
Right.
So every municipality, I think 31 out of the 38 municipalities have turned in local plans. So this is our strategic plan to deal with the opioid crisis. They were eligible for $5,000 mini grants from the Department of Health if they put together a plan to help carry out some of the objectives in the plan.
Right.
So that's going to be super helpful. And so, yeah, we're in this together, Bob, and,
Yeah, we
and
sure
the only
are.
way we're going to get out of it is together.
And I do have to correct you because
Yeah, please.
my boss has got this whole thing about 39
Yeah.
39 tours, and you said 38, but there are 39 communities
citizen
in the
towns.
state.
My bad.
Yeah, because I wouldn't hear the end of it if I went back and you didn't correct him when he said 38 communities in the state of Rhode Island.
Where did I get 38
I don't know. There are 39
I don't know.
communities in the state of Rhode Island.
My bad.
Yeah,
My
and if-
bad. I wasn't trying to leave anybody out. I promise.
You left,
I
but
promise.
nobody knows which one you left out.
Good point.
That's right.
Be our secret.
Because I've been doing this thing, tours. He did the tours of 39 farms in the state,
Right.
which is amazing to me.
Right.
That we found like 62 farms,
Wow.
which is amazing in the
Yeah.
state of Rhode Island, little state of Rhode Island. And then we did the 39 diners in the state.
Oh, wow.
Now we're doing 39 manufacturers.
So the number 39 has significance in your life.
Certainly,
because of your boss.
because of Dan McKee. You better
That's
believe
right.
it does.
Good.
But it's amazing
Well, I'm
to
sure
see.
Governor Raimondo is not going to be happy with me either.
38?
leaving somebody out. Yeah,
Well,
don't tell her.
Again, the point is, you didn't say which one. You didn't.
That's right.
You didn't distinguish which one you left out.
It was just a slip of the tongue.
An oversight. That's
That's
all. There are 39 communities, folks, in the state of Rhode Island, and he knew that. Just a slip of the tongue. That's all it was. But it's amazing. I am so proud of you to see you. I've seen you at your worst. I've seen you at your best, and you're certainly at your best
Well, thank
right
you.
now. To see that you went to Washington.
Yeah.
You're back here
Right.
in the governor's office.
Yeah.
You just about run shows everywhere you go since you were a kid. I mean, I can remember you on the
You remember
Glenn
the
Madeira show over here.
In the JCs, you probably remember when we were
I
active in the
absolutely do,
JCs,
in the
and
JCs.
We did Oktoberfest together. You remember all the big things that we did.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's
back in the
that's
day.
going back. You were
Yeah.
you what 16 years old or 17
I was
years
18,
old?
19, yeah,
well, maybe
something
that
like
old.
yeah. But I got involved early because my family was involved. My
Right,
parents
your-
were both
your mother
JCs.
was your
Chip
dad and
Hoyas,
your mother.
our good friend Chip,
Chip Hoyas.
Yeah, was involved. So we did a lot of community work together, and that's what gave me, I think, gave me the bug. I was bitten by the bug early on to be involved and to be active in my community, and I don't see that a lot with kids these days. and
it's awful,
so
isn't
I
it?
try to encourage I have 5 nieces, 1 niece and 4 nephews, so I have 5. I say nieces and nephews, but I'm trying to encourage them to be active in the community, and a couple of them I think are going to be bitten by the bug as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
definitely.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. How long was your mother in the house?
30 years. 30
Really?
years in the House of Representatives.
Wow.
Yeah, she served from 1984 to 2014.
Wow.
Fact,
That's
It's a
unbelievable.
long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And she's healthy. Mom's healthy.
Totally,
Dad's
yeah,
healthy.
healthy, and enjoying their retirement in Florida most of the time. They're back here for family events and for the holidays, but yeah, they love it down there.
Wow. Good for them.
Thank you.
And good for you.
I'll tell them you were asking for them.
You please do.
I
Please
will.
do. And I got to. Well, I can't say I'm not going to see you because I will see
We'll
you.
see
I'm
you.
sure this week.
I'll see you
at
tomorrow.
least. Exactly. Probably tomorrow. Anyway.
Good.
Well,
Well,
I'm so happy to
thanks,
see you.
Bob.
And we got to have you back periodically because
I would love to. I'll come back and update you on the progress we're making.
I think you should.
Good.
I think you should.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you, folks.
We'll be right back.
Beautiful Rhode Island. Prestigious colleges and universities. Fabulous multicultural dining experiences. The history, parks, music festivals, and the magic of Narragansett Bay's natural beauty. Everything from the celebrated arts to a world-class zoo. A cool capital city and a vibrant, heartwarming pulse. Life's too short to wait to see Rhode Island.
Well, folks, we're back on An Hour with Bob, and that was a great guest. Tommy Corderre. I'm very proud of him. I know him since he was a young boy, and man, talk about somebody that pulled it back together. He's one of the true man, I don't even know what to say without getting all flustered. Anyway, Tommy is a good kid. Anyway, look who's with us. Tony the Genius.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Nice
Great.
seeing you
Nice
again.
to see you too.
I've seen you around. You've
Yes.
been on the show years ago.
Yes.
You were on the show,
and,
right? How
and
long ago?
that had to be, what, about maybe 8 or 10 years ago? But
Oh,
then
all of that.
even before that, you and your son came down to Big Blue Bug too, and you had
Exactly.
Bob's Big Adventures, right?
That's
you came
right.
down to the
That's
Big Blue
right.
Bug.
Yep. Yep.
So we've known
That's
each other
right.
quite a
Oh,
while.
God, he talked about that for the longest time.
He was fabulous.
He's 23 years old now.
God grief! Oh, I feel so old.
Isn't that awful?
Yeah.
That's terrible. I remember when he would, he's only
Holding the
about 5.
microphone, just holding the microphone,
Yep.
and such composure. Yeah.
We did a show one time with, who's the Princess Bride? The woman that did the Princess Bride. John, help us out here, will you? Who did that?
That wasn't Julia Roberts, was it?
No, the older woman.
Oh,
did.
the older woman, Julie Andrews?
Yes,
Julie
yes,
Andrews,
Julie
yes,
Andrews.
yep.
I met her in Providence. She was at some kind of an event in Providence one time at the It was the Westin Hotel at the time, and I was standing with Zachary. I had a suit jacket on. Zachary had a blazer on, and he's like you're holding the mic. He was about 5, I guess, and we're waiting to get her to say
Sure.
hi or something, right? And unfortunately for Kelly McGee, who was on Channel 10.
I
at the
remember
time,
Kelly, yes.
she was getting ready. They were setting up to do an interview on the couch with her, and just as they got set to do the interview, she looked over and said to Kelly, she goes, "Who's that little boy?" And oh, that's Bob's son. And she goes, "Come here." She called him over.
Oh my goodness.
Had him sit on her lap.
Wow.
And he had the mic, and she had asked him to interview her.
All right.
And it really kind of blew it for Kelly McGee.
Sure, poor thing, but still, what a thrill for your
Oh,
son.
yes. She get upstaged by a kid.
Wow.
A kid or a puppy, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And she ended up talking to him, and I was then had to lead him with questions
Isn't
to
that
ask. It was hilarious. It was absolutely
great.
hilarious. He was probably 4. I don't think he was 5. He might have been 4.5. He might have been 5.
But he had a lot of poise. I remember that for sure.
Yeah. He was good. He was good in his younger days. Anyway, how's the Big Blue Bug Solutions?
Yeah,
that's a lot to say.
It certainly is, yes. And we were formerly New England Pest Control and
Right.
changed the name a number of years ago when the 2 younger sons of the president of the company came into the business, and everybody knew the bug. They
Sure.
didn't, even when I went out and would do public appearances and things like that, and it's from New England Pest Control, and people would look at me and I'd say, the Big Blue Bug. Oh,
yeah.
And so,
Even in Dumb and Dumber.
in Dumb and Dumber, yes, in the movie Dumb and Dumber. So, people knew the bug, and so it was about time that we made the change, and
Right.
so now the name is Big Blue Bug Solutions.
Now, how long have you been there?
I've been there 40 years now.
Is it really
40 years. I predate the bug. There's only 2 of us there that can say that.
Really?
Myself and the president of the company. We're the only 2 that predate the bug, yes.
Wow. All right. Then whose idea was the bug?
The bug was the idea of the president of the company and his dad, Leonard Goldman, who started the company. When we used to be down on Valley Street in Providence. That's
Right.
where we were originally in Oneyville.
Right.
And before that in Moshastic Square. That was before I got there, but I worked in Valley Street. And then we moved to that location. So they wanted to do something to say, here we are, we're here, something to, and,
What a great idea.
and
the
the idea,
genius. That's
it really was.
marketing
But
genius.
we would have never believed, that it could have gotten as famous as it did, in that time. The people would just come to love it. It's become an icon.
Oh yeah, and you can't miss it.
No, you
and
can't.
It's right on the Thurber Avenue curve.
Exactly. So the traffic reporters use it all the time as a reference point. There's an accident a quarter mile south of the Big Blue Bug, a half a mile past the Big Blue Bug. Everybody knows then a reference point.
Now, do you notice the guy? You must know if you're coming in from 195 into Providence.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
From East Providence,
Okay,
I guess.
yep.
From East Providence, there's not a dump truck, a cement truck.
So yes.
That guy's doing a little compliment
Right.
over
Yeah.
there, isn't he?
Yeah. He's
I don't
got
know
the
what
animal.
company
I don't
it
know
is.
if it's a zebra or whatever that he's got up
He's
there.
got something
yeah.
on the top, on the back of an old, I guess it must be an old
truck. Yep.
cement
Mixer.
cement truck.
Cement truck. Yep. Yeah, I've seen it a few times.
Yeah.
It's cute. It's a good idea. Again, if anything draws attention to your business, that's a good thing.
Oh, it is a copycat. I mean, it's a
Kind of.
copy. It's like how some of the shows that are on TV now have copied this show.
That's
over
right.
the years.
Exactly. Yeah, because you've been on so long. And I heard just a big anniversary coming up.
Well, 26 now.
That's not bad. You know, at 26, I mean, how many people can say they've been doing the same thing for 26 years? Not
and
too
not
many.
getting paid for it.
Yeah, not getting paid
That's
for it.
the
That's even
amazing
better.
thing. That's the amazing thing. And it's crazy. In fact, I think I talked about it on the last show, how people think because you're on TV, you're a millionaire.
Yeah,
You're making
yep,
a lot of money.
sure.
And when I ever tell them I don't get paid, they say, you do that show and you don't even get paid for it? Why do you do a show you don't get paid for? I said, because I enjoy doing it. And I've always done it to promote Rhode Island, promote the people of Rhode
Yes.
Island, promote the businesses of Rhode Island, the talent of Rhode Island. And it's always been a big thing for me.
Yes.
And that's why I do it. I don't do it for any money.
Nope, but
Or
you've done a lot of good with
gratification.
it. You know, I mean, the Toys for Tots, a big drive that you do every year and
Yep.
stuff like that. I
Yep.
mean, you do a lot of good with this show.
Yeah. And you do a lot of good with your show. Now, you're on Saturday morning.
On Saturday mornings on WPLO.
You don't believe it or not, I listen to you.
Thank you.
know that,
Thank you for listening.
And you know, you got some great advice all the time. All the time. I don't. Sometimes I want to call and I go, no, I don't have to. You already, a minute later, somebody else is talking. I've actually been on the line waiting to come on, and somebody took my phone.
Really?
Yeah, already took it. Now, I got a question for you.
Sure.
This weather, this crazy weather we've having.
Right.
Now, it's got to, I know it affects birds, it affects animals, it's got to affect bugs,
Yes.
insects too, right?
Absolutely. And it's delaying some of the arrival of some of our insects, slowing things down a little because it's too cool. But also, it's going to have effects future in the summer. All this rain and the wet weather is going to create standing water, fill our ponds and areas.
Oh, that's mosquitoes.
Exactly, Bob. Mosquitoes and ticks too. People forget too, the ticks like wet weather,
Oh,
the leaf litter
God.
and things like that. So I'm thinking we are going to have a very big season for mosquitoes and ticks coming up.
Ticks, my God. I had one, I was down in Jamestown. I guess it's a real bad problem.
Right,
tick
yes, very bad
population.
problem because of the deer and everything down
Yes.
there. Right.
And I was in my house in Pawtucket, and I had this awful feeling on my back, and I come outside and I said to one of my tenants, I said, look, I'm not getting fresh, but I pulled up my shirt, the back of my shirt. I said, I have something on my back. She started screaming.
Oh.
I had a tick on my back that apparently
it
was
was
there.
engorged, it'd be- yeah.
Hours and,
Yep.
and sucked the blood out of my back.
Oh.
He was as big as 2 dimes put together.
Wow. Well, that big, at least it's not a deer tick with the Lyme disease. And that's, that's
Well,
something
see, I
that's
didn't
really
know
bad.
that though
Right.
at the time. Now,
No.
so because it's a big tick, it's not a Lyme
Right,
tick?
yes. Not that big. Not like the size of a dime, like where it's
Oh, this
really
was big.
engorged. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not going to be a deer tick. That's going to be probably the brown dog tick or one of our other ticks. But the deer tick is very small, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Because you're talking about a tick that in its nymphal stage can be the size of a poppy seed.
Wow.
And here you might be walking in the woods, going camping, hiking, fishing, walking your dog.
And the dogs get them.
The dogs get them.
My poor dog, I used to take him home and have to go through them. I had a beagle.
Yep.
And I have to go through them, and you got to miss them.
Yeah, you do. It's really hard. You gotta when you walk your dog, come back, check yourself first, and then check the dog. Because again, if you're spending any time where the grass is a little bit high, where
Right.
there's brush or anything like that, that's where the ticks hang out. And as soon as you walk by, they latch onto you. They do what's called questing. They have their front legs out, moving all the time. And as soon as something comes by, they're ready to grab on.
Really?
Yes.
Now, do they go up in the trees too?
Not that high in the trees, but they can. Particularly like if they were on a squirrel or something like that, they could be carried up in the trees or on a bird. So they can end up high in the trees. But generally speaking, most ticks are about, from the waist length down. But they can be up higher too.
Now, when you're, like you said, you're walking in the brush, you're walking in the woods,
Right.
even, right? They're on the lower end of the trees.
Right, the lower end of trees, the higher grass, the brushy areas, that's where they're going to hang out. So normally, when you're out walking like that, the dog is walking and you're walking everywhere
Sure.
with the dog and he's pulling you left and right or whatever. Or you're maybe, if you're hiking or you're fishing and you got to cut through the woods, take the trails, and you get off and you start just brushing. It's all your pants have to do is brush up against it, or your shirt, you brush up against that brush, and that tick is on you. And the first thing that tick does is start moving and crawling to where it can get to your bare skin. So some of the
Right.
best places to check are like the waistline, the leg lines,
Where your socks meet
where
your-
your socks meet the pants, on the legs, below the knee, and everywhere like that. And when you get home, it's important to get, if you have a full-length mirror, it's great. You could strip down in the full-length mirror and just look at yourself over the back of your shoulder, look all around.
But
have
it's kind
somebody
of
else
tough
look
if
at you.
you're a single person
It's-
like myself and
yeah.
you're in the house. You can't see all.
No, you can't see
middle
all
of
the
your
way
back.
around.
You can't
It's-
see
it can
everywhere.
be really
Especially
difficult.
with a little tiny, like you said, the little tiny. I was lucky it wasn't a little tick.
Exactly. And one of the good tips you can use is even before you go in the house, if you have like a lint brush, you peel, get a fresh, and then just rub yourself, because that stickiness of the tape, that'll pick any ticks up that are on your clothing.
They'll come off.
Yeah, they'll come off on your clothing. Once
Right,
they're
not
on
when
you
they're on
and
your
embedded
body,
in you,
forget it.
once they're embedded in you, then you have to be very careful in removing them. None of the old wives' tales about, you burn it with a match,
Right.
or you put some butter on it. The best thing to do is get a good sharp pair of tweezers, and you get right down to the skin line, right where it's embedded, and you grab it, and then you slowly and gently pull it out with a steady pull.
Really?
Don't yank it out or anything, and don't squeeze it, because if you squeeze it, you aggravate the tick a little bit, and it'll squeeze more poison into you, or more of the bacteria that can cause Lyme disease and other diseases.
Wow, those little things.
Those little things can create major problems, and there is now studies now that show that there is what's referred to as chronic Lyme disease, that people that don't realize they've been bitten by the tick and it goes on for a while, and then they get this chronic, that it doesn't go away, it comes and goes constantly, and that can be
had
bad.
on the show last year, we had a woman here, Mrs. Rhode Island.
Okay.
She was a former Miss Teen Rhode Island many years earlier.
Yep.
And she had been having this terrible, constant debilitating pains. And for years. And she never knew what it was for almost a decade until they finally diagnosed it as Lyme disease.
And it can be, Lyme disease is very difficult to diagnose. So, for people that think they have it, and you go to your doctor, they do a blood test, and it comes back negative, and you still start, you're still getting those symptoms. Don't be afraid to ask or go for a second opinion,
Right.
or ask for another blood test,
Right.
because sometimes the first one comes back negative, the second one's the one that turns
It doesn't
up
get in your system right
Right.
away, I guess, right?
whatever it might be, it doesn't always show up right away. So sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tests to prove that you have the Lyme disease.
Now, what about getting in, like, I have a hot tub. What about getting in the hot tub right after I come home? Would that kill them all?
If there, any loose ones on you, yes, but if they're embedded in you, no, that wouldn't loosen them
Wow.
up. It really wouldn't. They're
Holy cow.
incredible. Once they get in there like that. I mean, if you're in the hot tub for a long, long period of time, they might possibly drown. That could be a possibility.
But I got to tell you, I've taken them off and put them in the little plastic container, and the one that was on my back,
right.
enclosed with no air, no water, no food, it lasted 11 days.
People are amazed when I tell them that. The people bring me samples of insects all the time down to the office. And if anybody ever has, if they're wondering, do they have a deer tick or something, you can bring
Sure.
it down to Big Blue Bug Solutions. We'll identify it free of charge for you.
Right.
But people bring down things, and I'll keep it to show other people.
Now is that Eddy Street actually?
O'Connell Street, right
O'Connell
between
Street.
Allens Avenue and Eddy Street.
Eddy,
We're
right.
right between it. So you get off at the Rhode Island Hospital exit and make a left, and you come up the hill, and it's right there. But when people bring in insects, I'll keep them sometimes to show people in the office, or use them for training, and I'll keep them for, you're right, a week, 10 days, 12 days sometimes.
I could not believe that I dated the date I put them in this little container, and that thing lasted 11 days.
Wow.
And all I can think of, it got the water, or should I say the food, from my blood.
Right.
But it got no air. But then again, it had the air that was
It's
in
enough
that
air.
container.
It's enough air for a little insect. It really is.
Yeah. And I'm saying, but I'm amazed that it lasted 11 days.
That is, yeah. But that's true. That happens.
And then I actually, after that, I started, because I had my RV down there in Jamestown.
Okay.
And I was constantly taking them off my clothes.
Right.
I used to put my pants inside my socks.
Socks, yeah.
And what is the stuff the best to use?
The insect repellent is still, DEET is still the best repellent. And if you're going to be like in the woods or down at places like that, DEET with about 35% DEET on it is really good. For your backyard, they make DEET for children now that's about 15, 20% DEET.
Right.
And for adults, maybe about a 20, 25% in your backyard. But if you're going to be in the woods, you're camping, you're hiking, you're golfing and you can't hit the ball in the fairway, you're in the woods all the time, that would be another one, And Dr. Tom Mather down at the University of Rhode Island did a study, and he said you can keep ticks off you about 70% if you just spray your shoes
Right.
with permethrin. There's a product called permethrin that's out on the market for spraying clothing
Now,
and
that's
shoes.
not DEET.
Right, that's not DEET.
That's
And
a
that you
different-
can't use on your skin. That you use on your clothing.
Right.
And there are even manufacturers now that are manufacturing clothing
Clothing.
with it in it.
In it, yeah.
In it already. You can buy them like at hunting supply places
Sure.
and things like that.
I actually looked into that
Yeah.
because I had, like I said, I had my RV down there. And
Yeah,
it was scary.
You're right in the middle of, you're right in the heart
Oh
of it.
my God! I said I can't sleep down here.
No. And people don't realize, that we're a little state, but we're like second in the country for per capita for ticks, for deer ticks.
Right.
So, and Lyme disease is just major here.
Now, why is that? Because of the deer?
Well,
The
it's
amount
because of the deer population, the animals, the mice too, are carriers of the smaller stages, the nympho stages of the ticks. And the last few years, the mice populations have been huge because the acorn populations are big.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah, that's why you've had so many mice problems. And so the mice carry the ticks, and then once the ticks get a little bit bigger, then the deer transport them.
But now you say mice with the acorns. I don't have any acorns around my house, but I had mice.
Yeah, you could. It all depends on what species of mice too. But mice have become a major problem year round. I mean, when I first started with the company 40 years ago, mice were a winter problem, insects were the summer. Mice are problems now year round.
Really?
The populations have really exploded.
It's amazing to me that and if I see a mouse, I go crazy.
Yep.
I'll go buy 20 traps. I put them all
And
over
that's
the
the
place.
best thing. People don't. You do the right thing. You set a bunch of traps. Most people, when they see a mouse in their house, they'll get 1 or 2 traps. You need to set a bunch of traps. First of all, you don't know if it's only one mouse that's in the house.
Yeah.
And second of all, if the first or second trap doesn't catch them, mice aren't like rats. If a mouse doesn't get caught in the trap, he doesn't get trap shy. He'll go back and get in another trap. If a trap goes off and scares a rat, they may not go back to a trap like that for again.
Right. But mice will.
Mice just not too sharp.
I had one time, I was in my house, I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden, you sense something
Right.
around you, and all of a sudden I look over and I see this little mouse running along the floor, and I'm going, what the hell is going on here? I couldn't even sleep that night.
No, it does. It plays on you.
Yeah. All I can think about is I'm going to be attacked by a whole, 300 mice. I
Yeah.
said, this guy had the guts to come out when I'm watching TV.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and of course, we're thinking male, but if that's a female and she's pregnant, all of a sudden she has 6 or 8 at a time, and 1 month later, those 6 or 8 have started to reproduce.
Wow, but this was a little one, so
yeah.
this was the result
Right,
of
yes,
one.
exactly.
And all I could think of, because I live in an apartment house, and all I could think of was one of my tenants, I ended up finding out one of my tenants was leaving their food out.
Oh, that's a bad thing.
And I ended up going in the house with her, and I ended up seeing she had an ironing board down, this far from the floor, and she had meals from three nights on the. I said, you can't leave food out like that.
No, that's an invitation to
Yeah.
not only mice, rats, insects. That's not a good thing to do.
Oh, so I said, no, this has got to stop. You got to clean this house up now. Get everything out, and I had her clean out, and she was a very clean woman. You see her out on the street, but she just had very poor habit at home.
Yeah, and a lot of people, in right now in our society, it's such a busy lifestyle for people, especially people with kids where, they'll go to work sometimes and leave the dirty dishes in the sink,
right.
Or they go to bed at night and they leave everything there. My wife always had this thing that if we had people over, guests over, she would wash all the dishes and everything before she went to bed. She would not go to sleep and leave dirty dishes in the sink and things.
And
But a
neither
lot of
will I.
people- No, see, and that's the best thing to do. But people sometimes will do that, or they're not careful with their trash. Again, when you live in an apartment building, you could be the neatest person in the world,
Right.
but if the person up above you or down below you isn't too neat, you can
Forget
end up
about
with
it.
some of their overflow.
In this woman's defense, she was a college student and she's working a full-time job out of state. I mean,
Yeah.
this girl had no. I mean, she
Yeah.
come home sometimes midnight,
Yep.
and I hear her up. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the
Yep.
morning. She'd be up at 6,
She'd be up too,
6:30 in the
so-
morning.
wow.
The girl doesn't get any sleep.
Right, yeah.
So she, like you said, she doesn't have time to do anything.
No, it's that busy, hectic lifestyle that we live in, for parents, for people, with kids, they're running the kids to soccer practice, to lacrosse, to baseball, to dancing, gymnastics, and they're in and out, and I mean, when we grew up, we had family meals, you sat
Right.
down together, we all ate a family meal.
Yep.
Now they're catching food on the go, and things get left behind, they don't dump the trash when they should, dishes are left out, and it creates problems for things like ants and mice and stuff like that in homes.
Well, my tenants will tell you that I go crazy if my trash day is Thursday morning, and I tell them you best have your trash out there Wednesday night.
Yep.
Nothing I hate more than seeing the trash barrels half full on Thursday night.
Yeah, yep.
Which means it's got to be out there for the whole week.
Exactly, yep, exactly right. Oh.
Now, what's the big problem? What kind of insects are we got to deal with right now in April?
Okay, right now where you're looking at two things. Once the weather warms up just a little bit more, you'll start seeing ants and termites. And it's going to be difficult for people, the ones with the wings, to tell them apart. So a couple of tips.
Yeah,
you got
right,
the flying
right.
ants and the flying termites.
Well, the termites have the things on the front, right?
Well, they have the jaws for chewing wood. They have the mandibles for chewing wood. But the termites have what looks like a one-piece body. Even though there's a head, a thorax, and an abdomen, it looks like it's one piece, where an ant is pinched at the neckline between the head and the thorax and between the abdomen and the thorax. It's pinched twice, so it looks like a segmented body.
Right.
And the ant that has wings, those
are the carpenter ants.
they can even be the little tiny ants too, the paper ants. Nature gives ants wings to disperse the colony like termites. So the ants' wings are two different sizes. The top wings are bigger than the small one, and then the underside wings. Termite wings are all the same sizes. But the easiest thing for people to look for is if they find wings on the floor. That's usually definitely termites, because termites, as soon as they swarm and come out and land, they start shedding their wings. Because they shed the wings because the wings get in the way of reproduction. They reproduce abdomen to abdomen, so the wings hang over and they can't do anything. Gets in the way, you got to shed them.
So what's worse to have, a termite?
Yeah, it's definitely termites, because termites can really destroy homes very quickly, as opposed to ants, and especially the little tiny ants, which really don't do any damage. They're more like a nuisance. The carpenter ants, a bigger ant, that can do some damage to a house too. And
yes,
they start coming out now at this time of year also.
Wow. So you got the ants. Mm-hmm. Now are we having a problem? I hear people talking about rats.
Yeah. Some of our cities have had some decent problems. It's been in the news. North Providence, Cranston.
Right.
Providence had a little bit, and there's not a community in Rhode Island. Everybody says, oh, I live in East Providence. I don't have rats. There's not a community in Rhode Island. 39, I now know, 39.
39. Oh, you caught that, huh?
I caught that.
So, I had to do that to Tom.
I'm glad you did that. And I knew it was in the 30s, but I didn't know how many. I'll never forget now.
Because I'm with the Lieutenant Governor all the time, and we're doing this tour. Like I said, we did the tour of 39 diners. And by the way, we couldn't find a diner in one town, in one of the 39 communities. We could not find a breakfast place.
Really?
Yeah, and there was one community in Rhode Island we could not find a breakfast place. I mean, they have some great
we got some.
I mean,
those are the best places to go to, the little diners.
The diners are the best. Middle of nowhere diner, you know where
Right,
that
yes,
is?
I know exactly where that is. Yep.
And I mean, some of the diners are crazy. The Modern Diner right here in Kentucky, the Stateside Diner, and up in on Route 6.
Yeah, down near us, we have the Seaplane Diner right on Rhode Island's Avenue. It's been there for years. So
all over the state, there's some great Reedy's down in Portsmouth.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, I could go on, and I'm sure I'm going to hear it because I'm not coming up with all the names, but they're all over the state of Rhode Island. Down in Westerly, and all over the state of Rhode Island. Warwick has some great diners. Sunshine Diner.
Yep.
They get some great diners all over. And as I go along, I'll remember more of them. But after that, after we did the diners, we did the farms. I could not believe how many farms there are in the state of Rhode Island. And it's in the 60s.
Yeah, but we have to support our farmers too.
Absolutely.
It's a dying industry, and if we don't support them, I mean, you get fresh produce, your fresh milk, your eggs. They provide, and plus just the clean air and everything that they're doing with the farming. I can't do enough for our farmers, I don't think.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree.
But we were talking about the rats with the cities.
Yes.
There's not a city or town that doesn't have rats, but some have them worse than others, and sometimes politics can get in the way. It's like anything else. Well, it's my community. It's I want to take care of my ward first, and you want to take care of your ward.
Right.
But you got to get the town or the city together.
All of them together.
All of them to work together. Providence did a great thing when they started getting the big trash containers. Rather than putting the bags out on the sidewalk that the rats would rip open, now you're eliminating a food source. You got that container.
But so they moved to Cranston, they moved to Nantucket, they moved to North Providence, right?
So
you got to get everybody doing it.
You do. You need to do, and you need to educate people too. That they need to do certain things. They need to make sure that they're picking up their waste in their yard. You got animal waste. You got bird seed in the yards. You got a lot of things. I mean, I feed the birds, but I put out just enough food for them to eat every day.
Right. And what you just said is important. Animal waste. People don't realize your dog poop out there.
Rats will eat that.
Rats will eat that. As gross as that sounds.
That's right.
That's good food for the rat.
For the rat, it is. And, you know, it's all that. It's making sure that we take care of some of our abandoned properties.
Yes.
You know, I mean, because all of a sudden you got buildings that are where the basement windows are broken. It's like anything else. Kids will throw rocks at the window, and before you know it, you've got animals living. You've got rats living in there, or raccoons, or possums, and all kinds of things take up residence in there. And now, in the middle of this neighborhood, you've got a nice neighborhood with one piece of abandoned property, and that's like the epicenter.
Yep.
And
that's their headquarters.
It
They're
is.
working their way out of there.
Exactly right. Now they go to all the other yards to get their food. And the problem is that those people in those other yards, they put up with the rats coming, but you can't go onto that property and treat unless you get permission from the landlord.
Right.
So, you know, and that's where it becomes a community problem. You've got to get everybody involved, get the politicians involved, the neighborhood action groups, and you work together. And you can solve it, but it takes a while.
Sure.
It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't go away overnight.
Right. And what am I thinking of? Mosquitoes are the biggest killers in the world. Are they?
Right, that's right. Malaria. You know, malaria. You know, and if malaria was ever in the United States and killing as many children as it kills over in Africa and South America, they'd be having telethons. They'd be doing everything they could to raise money. But it's, you know, they're so impoverished over there. They don't have the money for the proper sanitation, for the things they need to do.
And the still water, just the still water.
That's all it is. And if you think about your own home, think about, you know, like I told you, I feed the birds. I have a bird bath, but I take that bird bath, I dump it out every other day. I rinse it out, make sure the water doesn't stay stagnant in there. Kids' wading pools, dump it out, refill them every couple of days. If you've got old tires around your house.
Oh, that's worse.
You know, it really is, because it holds, you know, drill a hole in the bottom so even if you're using it as a swing for the kids, drill a hole in the bottom so the water drains out.
Because it's stagnant water.
It's stagnant water. That's exactly right. You never see mosquitoes breeding in a running stream or a running brook, but it's those ponds, it's those puddles. Those are the areas where they like to breed, and that's where they lay their eggs.
Wow. There's so many things you got to deal with, though, right?
It really is. You know, pests are they're universal, and, you know, I always...
You'll never be out of work.
No, you know, because there's always people like my wife that can't stand insects. That, will do it. She would pay anything, you know, if she got bugs in the house.
Yep.
You know, come down and take care of it. I don't care what it
God
costs.
forbid if I ever saw a cockroach in my house, it'd be all over. I'd have you pull a tent over the whole 3-decker. I mean, that would...
You know, and it doesn't mean you're a dirty person if you have a cockroach. Anybody can get them. You know, you go to a store, they could be in a paper bag. You could buy something at a yard sale at a used furniture store. You can bring them home from takeout food. There's all kinds of ways you can get cockroaches.
Oh, my God.
And again, all you need to do is bring one female home, and she lays an egg, and you have 32 to 50 baby cockroaches out of one egg capsule.
Wow. And like you said, at one tenant, you could clean your house up. You could be the cleanest person in the world. If somebody else in one of the other apartments is not doing their due diligence.
Exactly. You know, and landlords need to take that, you know, into responsibility and go down and take a look and talk to them. Have you seen any bugs? Have you seen anything? You know, they need to be aware of what's going on. You know, you own a building, you know, check with your tenants, talk to them, let them know what's going on. That, you know, if you're a good landlord, and most landlords are good. You know, I mean, there are occasionally the slum ones, but most landlords are good and want to protect their property.
Right, especially if you live there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. If you're the landlord there, one thing if you're an absentee landlord, you don't live there and you're just collecting rents. But if you're a good landlord, you live there, you want to make sure there's no pests in that house.
Because it's only problems. Pests.
And it really is.
And very costly. It could be very costly.
It can be, and they can do damage too. Like mice will gnaw on wires and chew on wires.
It's unbelievable.
You know, and so just think about, you know, people say, I get mice occasionally. It's no big deal. Well, first of all, you have the fecal material. You've got the droppings that carry diseases like Salmonella and Escherichia coli, and then you've also got your ability to gnaw and chew on things. And if, you know, they get into a house and start chewing on wires, you can end up with a fire.
Oh, absolutely.
Matter of fact, the National Pest Management Association estimates that 10% of the fires in this country, that when they say it's a fire of unknown origin, it's usually caused by either mice or squirrels or something chewing on the wires in the house.
Wow. I had a squirrel in my house one time. Oh, you know what I just had happen in my house? It scared the living daylights out of me. I was working on the other house I'm doing over, and I got the scent something was above me. It was a bat.
Oh.
It went flying right over my head, and the living room was 30 feet long into the kitchen's over 40 feet, and that thing just kept on going like this. And
circling
all the way. And he would like almost dive bomb on me. And you try to swing at them with something, and they got that radar, and they move.
They dodge it,
So what I did was, after he went down that way, I opened that window, and then when he come up this way, I went down that way, opened that window, and finally he took off.
They went out, they sense the cool air, and they'll get out. You know, and it can be unfortunately, a dangerous situation too for people to get bit or scratched by bats. And the CDC recommends that if you're asleep in a house and you wake up and there's a bat flying around, that you contact your physician, because they'll probably give you rabies treatments just in case. Because some
Really?
of that saliva could get in your eyes or your mouth as you're sleeping, on your hand, and then you touch your eye, touch your mouth, and you can get rabies that way if the bat is rabid. Now, if you can catch the bat and take it down to the health department, they
Right.
will test it for rabies, and then you'll know. But if you can't, if you never
Holy
figure that out
cow.
yet, the CDC recommends that, if you wake up, or someone's sleeping in a room and there's a bat found in a room, like a child, you have that child checked,
Yes.
because it could be a dangerous situation.
And I have actually, over the years, and somebody called me one time and down the street many, many years ago, and I grabbed a racket,
Yep, tennis racket.
tennis racket, the best way to nail
Yep,
it.
because it goes right through it. The radar
They don't
goes
see
right
that.
through it.
They
No.
don't, or they don't sense it.
Yep.
And I nail one. Well, when they're on the ground, they look like a mouse.
Exactly.
The size of a
They're
mouse. You
very
pull their
small.
wings apart, they're this big.
Right, and they're frightening. People have this image from the horror movies and everything. But outside, bats are very important. They eat mosquitoes.
Exactly.
So
They're good.
Ecologically, they're very good for us. You just don't want them in your home.
Right, right.
And we have ways of getting rid of them that don't kill the bats. We put on one-way doors. We get up in the attics and on the sides of the house. We we figure out how the bats are getting in.
Right.
And we put on a one-way door that's almost like a dry event type thing, that a bat can fly out and then not get back in. So now you've gotten them out of the house, you've saved them, so it's good for the environment, and you're eliminating them from the people's homes.
Right. Wow.
So there are things that can be done for them.
Well, we're going to have to go through this. I'm going to have you on periodically. But I think we're out of time, right, John?
You're on a tape, too.
We're out of tape. All right, I guess we're done.
We're done.
We're done. I can't even say goodnight.